In this part, we will introduce to you geomorphology, and we will also cover factor controlling landform development, endogenetic and exogenetic forces, origin and evolution of Earth's crust, physical conditions of the Earth's interior. What is geomorphology? Geomorphology is the science that describes origin, evolution, form, classification and spatial distribution of landforms. If geomorphology as a term is understood, it is subdivided into geomorpho and logos. Geo means earth, morpho means forms, and logos means study. Therefore, it is literally the study of earth forms. There are 10 basic fundamental concepts of geomorphology, and they are as follows. First one is the same physical processes and law that operated throughout geological time, although not necessarily with the same intensity as now. So this concept explains that in the geological time scale, the process that has operated in the past is still continuing. Maybe the intensity is not equivalent to the intensity in the past, but the continuity is still existing. This important principle of geology is also known as principle of uniformitarianism, and it was coined by Hutton in 1785. And according to Hutton, present is the key to the past. The second principle is geologic structure is a dominant control factor in the evolution of landforms and is reflected in them. Here the term structure includes not only the folds, faults, but all those ways in which the earth materials out of which landforms are carved, and they are different from one another in their physical and chemical attributes. Structure here also has a stratigraphic implication, and knowledge of structure also spatial in nature, which means it has regional variations, and the various rock sequence that are found in various regions are also well appreciated. And these rocks and surface materials, as well as the regional relationship, totally forms the stratification of rocks or stratification of various layers of the earth. To a large degree, the earth's surface possesses relief because the geomorphic process operates at different rates. Earth has various landforms, right from the elevating features like mountains to the depressed features like trenches and oceans. This in total forms the relief. The difference in height between the highest landform to the deepest landform in the crust forms the relief of the earth, and the rate of all weathering, all mass wasting, all erosion and all deposition varies appreciably within their narrow limits in relation to the influence of various local and conditional factors. These processes leave their distinctive imprint upon landforms, and each geomorphic process develops its own characteristics assemblage of land. In general, we see that the endogenetic and exogenetic processes, they lead to the formation of various landforms. These landforms develop their own features and they can be identified with that. Fifth principle is, as the different erosional agents act upon the earth's crust or the surface of earth, there is produced an orderly sequence of landform. The landform possesses distinctive characteristics depending upon the stage of their development. According to W.M. Davis, an idea grew and according to which the concept of geomorphic cycle and its concomitant stages of youth, maturity and old age, culminating in a topographic surface of low relief called as peneplain. So according to this, there is a continuity of the structure, or we can call it as the landforms formed. They have different stages like youth, maturity, old age, and also the elevation decreases, and the lowest relief is called as the peneplain. The complexity of geomorphic evolution is more common than simplicity. Usually most of the topographic details have been produced during the current cycle of erosion, but there may exist within as area remnants of features produced during a prior cycle. Commonly we are able to recognize the dominance of one cycle. Horberg in 1952 divides the landscapes into 5 major categories. They are simple, compound, monocyclic, multicyclic and exhumed. The 7th principle explains little of Earth's topography is older than Tertiary and most of it no older than Pleistocene. In total, it explains that the topography of Earth is very new and it doesn't date back of the Pleistocene, and certainly little of it existed as surface topography back of the Tertiary. The Himalayas were probably the first folded in the Cretaceous and later in the Eocene and Miocene geological time scale, but their present elevation was not attained until the Pleistocene, and most of the topographic details in Pleistocene or later in age. Proper interpretation of present-day landscape is impossible without a full appreciation of manifold influences of the geologic and climatic changes during the Pleistocene. Pleistocene period, they have had far-reaching effects upon present-day topography. Glaciation as a process directly affected many million square miles, perhaps as much as more than 10 crore square miles, but its effect extended far beyond the areas actually glaciated. Glacial outwash and wind-blown material of glacial origin extended into areas which are not glaciated, and the climatic effects were probably worldwide in extent. Around the Pacific Ocean, Pleistocene diastrophism has played a most significant role in shaping of present-day landscapes. An appreciation of world climate is necessary to a proper understanding of varying importance of the different geomorphic processes. Climatic variation may affect the operation of geomorphic processes either directly or indirectly. The indirect influences are largely related to how climate affects the amount, its kind and distribution of vegetal cover or the vegetation. The direct control are such as the amount and kind of precipitation, its intensity, the relation between precipitation and evaporation, and daily range of temperature, weather, and how frequently the temperature falls below. The 10th principle, although concerned primarily with present-day landscapes, attains its maximum usefulness by historical extension. Geomorphology concerns itself primarily with origins of the present landscape, but in most landscapes there are present forms that date back to previous geological epochs or periods. Geomorphologists are thus forced to adopt an historical approach if he is to interpret properly the geomorphic history of a region. Paleogeomorphology covers the identification of ancient erosion surfaces and study of ancient topographies. After knowing about the principles of geomorphology, we will learn about geomorphic agents, and these agents are divided into two, and they are erosional and depositional. Erosional is destructional in nature and depositional is constructional in nature, and they provide formation of various kinds of landforms. Many varieties of landforms are developed by action of each of the geomorphic agents depending upon especially the type and structure is folds, faults, joints, fractures, hardness and softness, permeability and impermeability. There are some other independent controls like stability of sea level, tectonic stability of land masses and climate. The important factors controlling landform development are variation in location, variation in composition, size of rocks, local weather condition, the exposure of rocks to air, water and the actions of living things. Difference in the amount of solar energy on the north and south sides of mountains also affects the soil characteristics in opposite sides of the mountains. This is mostly related to the landforms formed in the mountains. Also, there is the composition of minerals present and the size of rock particles and climate as an important factor. There are 7 major geomorphic theories of landform development. The first one is Davysian theory. His concept of geographical cycle, or commonly known as cycle of erosion, provided a genetic classification and systematic description of landforms. According to Davis, geographical cycle is a period of time during which an uplifted landmass undergoes transformation by the process of land sculpture, ending into 2 featureless plains or peneplain, which Davis called as peneplain. There is another theory called as Penck's theory, contrary to the Davysian concept that landscape is a function of structure, process and time. Penck put forward his view that geomorphic forms are an expression of the phase and rate of uplift in relation to the rate of degradation, where it is assumed that interaction between the 2 factors, the uplift and degradation, is continuous. According to Penck's view, the landform observed at any given site give expression to the relation between the 2 factors of uplift and degradation that has been or is in effect, and not to a stage in a progressive sequence. Then comes the Gilbert's theory. The concepts and principles propounded by Gilbert provided the base for the development of the dynamic equilibrium theory. This theory involved time-independent developments of landforms. According to this theory, landscape is the result of 2 competing tendencies, that is, tendency towards variability and tendency towards uniformity. Of L.C. King, he formulated a set of cyclic models such as landscape cycle, epigene cycle, pediplanation cycle, hill slope cycle. The reference system of King's model say there is uniform development of landform in varying environmental conditions, and there is insignificant influence of climatic changes in the development of fluvially originated landforms. Fluvially is derived from the word fluvial, which means river. Major landscapes in all the continents have been evolved by rhythmic global tectonic events. There is continuous migration of hill slope, and such retreat is always in the form of parallel retreat. Theory of J.T. Hack. Hack's model envisages time-independent development of landscape. In other words, the shape of the landform reflects the balance between the resistance of the underlying materials to erosion and erosive energy of the active processes. Theory of Morisawa explains the result of geomorphic morphological studies pertaining to erosion and reliefs undertaken by different geomorphologists in different parts of the world. And the conclusion came as that there is high rate of erosion on uplifted land mass because potential energy required for erosion increases due to greater height, and high potential energy results in high kinetic energy due to increased channel flow velocity, which ultimately accelerates erosion. This is a very scientific theory, and here the most important factors are understanding the types of energy which are potential and kinetic energy. Potential energy is by the virtue of height and kinetic energy is by the virtue of motion. Theory of S.A. Schmoom. According to the concept of complex response, when a fluvial system is rejuvenated, drainage basin, then the response of the fluvial system to rejuvenation is not just renewed accelerated rate of valley deepening, but the response is in the form of attainment of new equilibrium. It may be stated that the equilibrium is disturbed due to rejuvenation through downcutting, aggradation and renewed erosion.